Life is like an endless stream, sweeping us into worries, struggles, and the scrutinizing eyes of others. We become preoccupied with seeking happiness through fame, wealth, praise, or the recognition of others, forgetting that true happiness does not lie outside, but within our hearts. The Buddha taught, happiness does not lie in clinging, but in letting go. But letting go does not mean indifference or avoidance, it means releasing unnecessary attachments so that the heart may become light. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I living for? What is the purpose of my life? Sometimes, we lose ourselves just to please others, to avoid judgment, or to prevent feeling lost in the world. But the harder we try to cling, the more we find suffering. Just as a pond can only reflect the moon when it is still, our hearts can only be at peace when they are no longer disturbed by the fleeting thoughts of impermanence. In life, we often think we must do something great, help everyone, and be perfect in the eyes of the world. But the truth is, each person has their own journey, and we cannot bear the karmic burden of others. Just like a lighthouse only illuminates but does not pull the ship to shore, compassion must be paired with wisdom so we know when to lift others up and when to let go. There are cracks in our souls, wounds, and mistakes from the past that we always try to hide. But if we learn to acknowledge them with gratitude, we will realize that these very cracks have helped us grow, giving the light of wisdom a chance to shine through. This video is not meant to teach, but rather to remind us that happiness does not lie in the things we accumulate, but in what we can let go. Let us take a moment to calm our hearts, reflect on ourselves, and realize that only when we dare to live authentically, when we dare to release heavy expectations, can we truly find peace. Human life is like a river, flowing endlessly. This river carries with it joys and sorrows, expectations, and pressures from society, from family, and from ourselves. When we are young, we are preoccupied with seeking recognition, trying to perfect ourselves to meet the standards set by others. As we grow older, we remain busy, for society demands that we have a title, a status, and proof that we still have value. But deep inside, are we truly happy, or are we just trying to avoid being judged, trying not to be seen as useless? The Buddha taught that happiness does not lie in holding on but in letting go. Letting go does not mean avoidance or laziness, but a deep understanding that the value of a person is not determined by the eyes of others. Life is finite, and with each passing day, we move closer to impermanence. Yet, people often bind themselves by the expectations of society, by praises and criticisms, by fleeting titles. We wear masks, trying to conceal our insecurities, afraid of not being acknowledged, of being criticized, or forgotten. But who truly understands you? An elderly woman once shared that her entire life had been spent in fear of the judgment of others. She chose her clothes based on her neighbors' preferences, acted according to the wishes of those around her. But when her husband passed away, she suddenly realized, everything she had done was merely to maintain an image that society wanted. But in the end, did that society truly care about her? They merely glanced at her and then became absorbed in their own lives. It was at that moment she understood that living for others' judgments was no different than being a prisoner of her own mind. The gaze of the world is like the waves of the ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes violent. If we continue to chase the judgments from outside, our lives will never find peace. For people never cease to judge. Today, they may criticize us for being poor. Tomorrow, they may accuse us of living extravagantly. Today, they praise us for our success. Tomorrow, they might call us arrogant. People, still ignorant and attached, tend to judge others to reinforce their own egos. But if we understand the nature of this, we will no longer be bound by these judgments. Non-self is the key that frees us from the binding gaze of the world. When we understand non-self, we no longer cling to fame, no longer care about praise or criticism, and are not harmed by others' evaluations. After all these things are but illusions. But how can we practice non-self in modern life? It is not easy to immediately let go of the expectations that society places on us. But little by little, we can learn to view ourselves through the eye of wisdom, rather than through the lens of others. When faced with judgments, we can ask ourselves, do these words truly reflect who I am? Or are they just someone's subjective opinion? If we understand that each person sees the world from their own perspective, we will no longer be bothered by their evaluations. A person once visited a Zen master, complaining that he was disliked by everyone. He felt hurt when others criticized him and isolated him at work. The Zen master simply smiled and asked, "If someone gives you a gift and you do not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "It still belongs to the giver." The Zen master nodded, "Then, the criticism that you do not accept, it does not belong to you." Indeed, if we do not pay attention to the words of others, they will not have any power over us. But if we continue to hold those words in our hearts, tormenting ourselves, suffering, then we are the ones causing ourselves harm. Another important aspect of liberation from the gaze of the world is learning to have confidence in ourselves. Many people believe that confidence comes from success, from money, from status. But true confidence comes from within, from understanding our own worth without needing anyone else's validation. A tree remains strong in the sky, whether anyone is looking at it or not. A flower still blooms, even if no one praises it. We, too, do not need anyone to confirm our value, for that value is already within us. When we are no longer bound by the gaze of the world, we will find that our hearts become lighter. We no longer fear failure, no longer feel pressured to prove ourselves. We do what needs to be done, live the life we want to live, without seeking acceptance from others. Liberation from the gaze of the world does not mean becoming indifferent or detached from society. On the contrary, it is a way of living more authentically. When we no longer fear judgment, we can act with compassion, with sincerity. We can live according to the values we believe in, rather than living to fulfill the desires of others. Looking back on life, how much time have we wasted just worrying about what others think? How many dreams have we missed out on because we feared being laughed at? How many moments of joy have we lost just because we tried to please everyone? Life is short, but the burdens we place on ourselves are so many. If we continue to live for the gaze of the world, we will never truly be free. Only when we dare to let go of unnecessary expectations can we live a peaceful life. From the moment we are born, humans carry an instinctive reaction to everything around us. When we are praised, we feel joy. When criticized, we become angry. When slandered, we immediately seek to refute it. But after enduring many storms in life, we realize that such exchanges are like water flowing over lotus leaves, leaving no trace other than fatigue. In life, most conflicts arise from words. A careless remark can stir the heart. A sharp tongue can destroy a long-standing relationship. People argue to protect their egos, to prove their correctness, to assert their power. But does winning an argument truly bring peace? A story from the Buddhist tradition recounts an occasion when a man came to insult the Buddha with harsh words. The Buddha remained silent, without responding. After the man had exhausted himself with insults, the Buddha calmly asked, "If someone brings a gift to offer, but the recipient does not accept it, to whom does the gift belong?" The man replied, "It belongs to the giver." The Buddha smiled, Similarly, the words you have spoken, I do not accept, so they remain with you. The wise do not argue, for they understand that all disputes only nourish the ego. When we argue, we are not truly concerned with the truth, but only with protecting our own viewpoints, trying to show that we are smarter, or that our reasoning is sharper. But even if we win an argument, what have we truly gained? We may have hurt someone else, created distance in a relationship, or sowed further turmoil. Young people often enjoy arguing because they wish to affirm themselves. But as one ages, they begin to realize that not all disputes are worth having. Some things do not need to be proven. Some words are not worth our attention. The more spiritually mature a person becomes, the less they engage in arguments. However, silence does not imply weakness, nor does it mean avoidance. Silence is a state of wisdom, a moment when we no longer follow the tide of emotions and ego. It is inner peace, the ability to observe without reacting, the steadiness amidst slander. In life, we encounter many words that do not align with our desires. There are moments of misunderstanding, criticism, and scorn. Our typical reaction is to justify ourselves, to argue to prove we are right. But have we ever asked ourselves, is this really necessary? If we are constantly influenced by others' words, are we truly free? Consider the wise individuals throughout history. They knew when to remain silent. When insulted, they did not become angry. When slandered, they did not seek to justify themselves. For they understood that time and truth would clarify everything. It is often said, words cost nothing, but in reality, words can be very costly. A thoughtless remark can ruin a life. A hurtful word can cause pain deeper than any physical wound. Yet, on the other hand, if we know when to use words properly, they can serve as tools for healing and helping others. So when should we speak, and when should we remain silent? Speak when your words can bring benefit, when they arise from compassion and understanding. Remain silent when you know your words will only add to the conflict, when arguing will only feed your ego. Learn to be like the still surface of a pond. When a stone is thrown in, the water may ripple for a moment, but soon it returns to peace. In a noisy society, where everyone wants to express their opinions, silence becomes a powerful force. It is the strength of composure, of self-mastery, and of wisdom. A person who can control their words is someone who can control their life. Once, a king asked a monk, "Can you teach me how to deal with critics?" The monk said nothing, but began pouring tea into a cup. He continued to pour until the tea overflowed, spilling onto the table. The king was astonished. "Why are you doing this? The cup is already full." The monk smiled. "When your mind is full of the words of others, how can you receive peace? Let it flow away, like the tea spilling from this cup." Life is impermanent. The words of today may matter, but tomorrow they may become meaningless. What truly matters is whether we can maintain inner peace, unshaken by the external. There is a saying, arguing with a fool is like trying to teach a donkey to sing. It wastes time and only frustrates you. People who argue often do not truly seek the truth, they only want to win. But when we learn to let go of the need to prove ourselves, we will feel lighter. A human life passes swiftly. If we are constantly preoccupied with unnecessary words, we will miss out on the precious moments of life. Let us focus on what truly matters: love, compassion, and enlightenment. Let us learn the art of silence at the right moments, so our hearts can become a place of tranquility, undisturbed by the storms outside. The silence of the wise is not weakness, but an immense strength. It is steadfastness amidst gossip, peace amidst the noise of life. When we understand the value of silence, we will no longer be swept away by useless arguments, and will instead know how to live a life that is truly peaceful and meaningful. In life, many people carry within themselves the desire to save others, especially their loved ones. They often believe they can solve their children's problems, protect their friends from mistakes, or even change someone's destiny. But have we ever asked ourselves, are we truly helping them, or are we simply slowing their progress on their journey toward maturity? A wise old father once shared that he had suffered for years because he could not help his son break free from addiction. He tried everything, advising, scolding, even mortgaging his property to send his son to rehabilitation. But his son still relapsed and returned to his old ways. Only when he turned to meditation did he realize an important truth: each person must walk through their own challenges. The Buddha taught, compassion does not mean carrying someone else's karma. In Buddhist teachings, each person carries their own karmic burden. The law of cause and effect cannot be shared or transferred from one person to another. No matter how much we love someone, we cannot live their life for them, nor can we bear their suffering. If we persist in trying to intervene in someone else's fate, we not only bring suffering upon ourselves but also inadvertently hinder their growth. True compassion does not involve doing everything for others, but rather creating the conditions for them to rise on their own. Look at parents who constantly protect their children, worrying about every little thing, fearing their children will stumble or fail. Yet, this overprotectiveness makes children weak, unable to stand up on their own when faced with difficulties. Look at a butterfly struggling to break free from its cocoon. If we help it tear the cocoon open, it will never have the strong wings to fly. The wings only grow strong when the butterfly struggles to break free on its own. Life is the same. Everyone must go through their own challenges. A person might learn the most important lessons not from the advice of others but from their own suffering and setbacks. The Buddha did not save anyone with miracles, he only pointed out the path. Each person must walk that path for themselves. When we understand this, our hearts become lighter. We no longer blame ourselves for not being able to change someone else. We no longer try to control the lives of others. Instead, we learn to be like a lighthouse, shining light but not pulling the boat ashore. A lighthouse cannot row the boat for anyone, but its light can help lost ships find their way. There is a Buddhist story that goes like this. One day, a man came to the Buddha and complained, "Blessed One, I have done everything I can to help my younger brother escape from gambling, but he still refuses to change. I have advised him, scolded him, even brought him to the temple, but he continues to go back to his old ways. I feel helpless and sorrowful." The Buddha smiled and asked, "If you were standing on the shore and saw someone struggling in the river, what would you do?" The man replied, "Of course, I would jump in to save him." The Buddha shook his head. "If you jump in, both of you could drown. First, you must make sure you can swim, then throw him a rope. But if he refuses to grab the rope, what can you do?" The man was silent. The Buddha gently continued, "You can love, you can show the way, but you cannot walk the path for them. If you keep agonizing over someone else's failure to change, you will only deepen your own suffering." Indeed, in this life, there are some people, no matter how hard we try, who do not want to change. Not because they cannot, but because they are not ready. A person can only let go of their bad habits when they themselves realize the consequences and desire transformation. If we continue to force them to change, they will feel imposed upon, controlled, and may even rebel more strongly. But does that mean we should be indifferent and not care for others? Not at all. True compassion is not about forcing, but always being ready to help when others are in need. Be there when they fall, but do not do it for them. Show them the way, but let them walk it themselves. In family relationships, especially between parents and children, this is an extremely important lesson. Many parents suffer because their children do not live up to their expectations. They want their children to follow a certain career, marry a certain person, or live a life they envision. But unrealistic expectations only cause suffering for both sides. Parents cannot live their children's lives, just as children cannot live forever in the protection of their parents. Each person has their own journey and their own karma. When we understand that everyone has their own path, we will learn to let go of the pressure to save others. We will spend more time developing ourselves, living a peaceful life. And when we are truly at peace, we can become the inspiration to help others change. A person cannot bring light to others when they are still in the darkness themselves. In meditation, there is a practice called letting go of the burden. Imagine that you are carrying a heavy burden on your shoulders, worries, responsibilities, and the burden of trying to save others. Take a moment, put that burden down, and feel the lightness. When we learn to let go of the burden of saving, our hearts open, compassion grows, and we experience true peace. From there, we no longer try to control others, but we learn to love correctly with understanding, patience, and wisdom. We become a lighthouse, quietly shining in the vast ocean of life, so that those who wish to find their way can know where the shore is. Human beings are always driven by the desire to reach perfection. From an early age, we are taught to strive for high grades, to become exemplary children, to secure a stable career, and to live a flawless life. As we grow, we continue to chase the standards set by society: physical beauty, ideal relationships, and brilliant success. But have we ever paused to ask ourselves, does perfection truly exist? And if it does, is it the key to happiness? An old potter once said, "It is the cracks that give the piece its soul." The Japanese art of kintsugi reflects this philosophy. Broken ceramics are not discarded, but are repaired with gold. The cracks are not hidden, they are cherished, celebrated, and transformed into a part of the beauty. This is also how life works. No one goes through life without experiencing loss, mistakes, or suffering. But it is these wounds that shape us, that bring depth and maturity to the soul. The Buddha taught, the past is ashes, the future is smoke. Only the present is real. Yet, people tend to live in the realm of what is not real. We mourn the past, blame ourselves for mistakes, or endlessly chase after the future with hopes of achieving perfection. This is what prevents us from ever feeling complete, from ever experiencing true happiness. Some people, when they reach old age, look back on their lives filled with regret. I wish I hadn't chosen this career, I wish I hadn't hurt that person, or, I wish I had been brave enough to pursue my dreams. But no matter how many times we wish, we cannot turn back time. What is past is merely a lesson, not a chain that binds us. Instead of blaming ourselves, we should be grateful for the times we fell, for through those moments, we learned how to rise again. There is an irony in life: the people who appear to be the most perfect are often the ones who are the most insecure. Those who always strive to maintain a flawless image in front of others are often filled with deep fear inside. They fear that if their cracks are revealed, others will judge them, criticize them. But the truth is, no one is perfect. The person who lives authentically, who accepts their own wounds and flaws, is the strongest of all. Happiness is not found in hiding what is incomplete, but in daring to embrace ourselves, even in our imperfection. A flower does not need to bloom completely to be beautiful. a painting does not need to be flawless to have value. Life is the same. Sometimes it is the cracks, the imperfections, that make it meaningful. Think about the people you respect the most. Are they the ones who have never made a mistake? Or are they the ones who have endured great suffering, who have failed, but have continued to move forward? People with depth are not those who have led smooth lives, but those who have accepted all their imperfections and transformed them into strength. In meditation, there is an exercise called observing the imperfect. When sitting quietly, pay attention to your breath. Your breath is never perfectly even. Sometimes it is long, sometimes short, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. But despite its imperfection, the breath continues, it nourishes life. Life is the same. Perfection is not required for it to have value. There is a story about a Zen master and his disciple. One day, the disciple complained, "Master, I feel so incompetent. I always make mistakes, I never do things well enough." The Zen master smiled, pointed to a ceramic cup on the table, and asked, "Do you think this cup is beautiful?" The disciple replied, "Yes, it is beautiful." The Zen master gently turned the cup over, pointing to a small crack on the back. "Do you see this crack?" "Yes." "Do you still think the cup is beautiful?" The disciple was silent. The Zen master said, "It is the crack that makes the cup unique. Without this crack, it would just be an ordinary cup, like any other. We are like that cup. Our cracks, our wounds, our mistakes, do not diminish our value. They make us who we are, a unique individual, with our own story, our own lessons, and a beauty that no one else can replicate. If we continue to chase perfection, we will only invite suffering. But if we learn to embrace ourselves, to accept our imperfections, we will find peace. And when we are at peace, we will also look at others with more compassion. Rather than waiting for some day when everything is perfect to be happy, let us find happiness now, right in the midst of what is imperfect. For in this life, the most beautiful thing is not its perfection, but its authenticity. In today's modern life, we are overwhelmed with excess. We accumulate too much, not just in terms of material possessions but also in the form of invisible burdens, worries, pressures, and relentless desires. When we step into a house crammed full of things, do we truly feel happier? Or do we feel suffocated by the piles of items we've collected? An elderly woman once shared, "After the flood, I lost everything. Strangely, my heart felt light." This story reflects a great paradox in human life. We often think that having more will make us better off, but in reality, the more we possess, the more bound we become. Our homes are filled with clothes we never wear, books we've never read, and items we impulsively bought but never use. And when the living space is cramped by these unnecessary things, we ask ourselves, why do I always feel crowded? The Buddha taught, desire little, be content. This is the treasure of peace. Human suffering does not arise from scarcity, but from not knowing contentment. We always want more: a larger house, a more luxurious car, a fuller wardrobe. Yet, even when we achieve what we desire, we feel that it's not enough and continue chasing something else. This cycle prevents us from experiencing true peace. A wealthy person will continue buying, but have they ever truly felt the value of each item they own? Does an expensive watch bring more happiness than a simple one if it's only used to tell time? Does a vast mansion truly feel warmer than a small house filled with love? Letting go of material possessions does not mean abandoning everything, but rather choosing freedom. When an item leaves our possession, a worry is also washed away. When we give a used shirt to someone in need, we not only clear space in our home but also plant seeds of goodwill, helping someone else alleviate their own lack. Simplicity is not about the number of things we have, but about our attitude toward material things. There is a story in Zen that illustrates this well. A wealthy man came to a Zen master and asked, "Master, I have everything, but I still feel uneasy. How can I live happily?" The Zen master smiled and asked the man to fill a bowl with water and bring it to him. When the man brought the bowl, the Zen master instructed him to pour more water into it. "But the bowl is already full, master. There's no room for more." The Zen master nodded. "Then what will you do if you want more water?" The man thought for a moment and replied, "I must pour some out." The Zen master smiled gently. "Exactly. Your heart is like this bowl. It's full of unnecessary things, so no matter how hard you try to find happiness, there's no space to hold it. If you wish to embrace peace, you must let go of what is not truly important." We often think happiness comes from adding things: more money, more fame, more recognition. But sometimes, happiness comes from subtracting less desire, less busyness, fewer things that wear us down. Looking at modern life, we can easily see that many people are caught up in the whirlwind of consumerism. Social media and advertisements constantly remind us that we need more. Shopping becomes a way to relieve our stress, a tool to fill the void in our hearts. But does that void truly get filled, or is it only temporarily covered by new items? Imagine waking up one morning in a simple room, not filled with excessive things, but everything neatly organized. You pour yourself a cup of tea and quietly enjoy the calm of the early morning. You don't need crystal chandeliers or a lavish wardrobe to feel peaceful. That is true happiness. There are those who live in constant fear of losing their wealth, so they spend their lives accumulating more. But the paradox is that the more they own, the more anxious they become. A person with too much money fears theft, someone with too many possessions fears being targeted. But someone free from material attachments has nothing to lose and therefore nothing to fear. Look at children. They can play happily with a stone, a leaf, or a dry twig. They don't need expensive toys to be joyful. But as we grow older, we lose this simplicity. We start thinking we need more to feel complete. But the truth is, it's when we return to simplicity that we find true joy. The Buddha once taught that we come into this world with empty hands, and when we leave, we take nothing with us. So why spend our entire lives clinging to transient material things? When we lie down at the end, no one cares about how much wealth we've amassed. What matters is how we've lived, how we've loved, and what values we've left behind. Living simply does not mean living in poverty or deprivation. It is a conscious choice to keep only what is truly necessary and to focus on what truly matters. When we learn to let go of the unnecessary, life becomes lighter, the heart more expansive, and happiness becomes easier to attain. Life is not a race to see who can have more, but a journey toward inner peace. And that peace does not lie in the things we possess, but within our own hearts free from attachment, unshackled by endless desires. Try once to declutter your living space, not just externally, but internally as well. Let go of unnecessary items, release unwarranted worries, and let your heart become as light as a leaf floating on the river, drifting along the current of the present moment without resistance. Because sometimes, simplicity is the gateway to awakening. In modern life, we often confuse kindness with unconditional sacrifice. Many people believe that pleasing others is the way to be loved, to maintain harmony, and to avoid being judged as selfish. But the more we give unconditionally, the more we try to please everyone, the more likely we are to fall into exhaustion and harm. A 70-year-old meditation practitioner once shared, "I used to think that good meant always agreeing. Now I understand that good starts with being good to myself." This statement carries a profound awakening. We cannot always meet the expectations of others and forget about ourselves. Always saying yes is not a sign of compassion, but sometimes a sign of weakness, a symptom of losing ourselves. The Buddha taught, compassion must begin with oneself. This means that before helping others, before giving our energy and time to others, we must first understand and care for ourselves. If we try to carry everything on our shoulders, in the end, it will be us who collapse. And when we are exhausted, do we still have the strength to help anyone else? There is a story about a mother and her young child who were trapped in a great storm. When rescue teams arrived, they gave the mother the only life jacket. She immediately gave it to her child. However, because the child was too small and unable to swim, he was swept away by the waves. When the mother was exhausted in the water, she realized that if she had kept the life jacket for herself from the start, she would have had the strength to pull her child to safety. This story does not suggest that we should be selfish, but rather teaches us the importance of balancing helping others and preserving ourselves. If we are not strong, if we do not know how to protect our own strength, then even our kindness becomes futile. Saying no is not selfish, it is showing respect for ourselves. Like the bamboo, flexible but unbroken. The bamboo bends with the wind, but no matter how strong the wind, it does not break. This resilience is not weakness but an inherent strength. People are the same. If we do not know when to be firm and when to be gentle, we are easily influenced by others. Many people, especially women in traditional societies, often feel bound by the belief that they must endure, sacrifice, and bear burdens to preserve family happiness. A wife may tolerate her husband, a mother may cater to her children, a friend may help others to the point of forgetting her own limits. But what happens when this endurance exceeds one's strength? When this tolerance is not appreciated by others but taken for granted? One woman went to see a meditation master and said, "Master, I have spent my life sacrificing for my husband, friends, and family. But the more I tolerate, the more they demand. The more I help, the more they expect. Now, I feel exhausted and lost." The master smiled and poured tea into her cup. When the cup was full, he continued pouring, and the tea overflowed. The woman quickly said, "Master, the cup is full. You cannot pour any more." The master nodded, "You are like this cup. You are already full, yet you keep trying to take more. It's time for you to know when to stop." Humans are like a cup of tea, there are limits. If we keep taking without knowing when to stop, we will overflow and become depleted. Knowing when to say no is a way of protecting ourselves. In life, we cannot please everyone. There will be times when we need to refuse, whether it's a family member, a friend, or a colleague. Not everyone will understand and accept this, but those who truly love and cherish us will not leave simply because of one refusal. On the other hand, those who only seek their own benefit will disappear when they do not get what they want. There is one important thing that many people forget: saying no does not mean completely rejecting, but rather choosing what deserves our time and energy. If a request causes us pressure, we should consider whether we truly want to do it. If a relationship only brings fatigue and harm, we should ask ourselves whether we should continue to maintain it. In the Buddhist scriptures, it is said, "Keep your mind like a calm lake, not letting the waves of impermanence disturb it." If we allow ourselves to be swept away by the demands and expectations of others, we will never find peace. But if we know how to preserve our energy, knowing our limits, then no matter how chaotic the world outside, we can stand firm in the stream of life. Imagine a person who spends his days carrying one task after another. He helps colleagues, friends, family, but has no time for himself. One day, he falls ill, exhausted to the point of being unable to do anything. What will the people who once relied on him do? Some may sympathize, but many will turn away and find someone else to replace him. This is the way life is. If we do not know how to protect ourselves, no one else can do it for us. If we do not know how to set boundaries, no one will respect our limits. Learn to say no when necessary. Have the courage to refuse what does not align with your values. Let those who truly love you understand that you also have needs and boundaries that deserve respect. Those who are sincere will stay, while those who are self-serving will naturally leave. Like a rainstorm, the clean water will seep into the earth, while the dirt will be washed away. When we know how to preserve ourselves, when we are strong enough not to be swept away by what is unworthy, we will find true peace. And that is the power of one who knows how to say no. In modern society, we are often swept away by the fast-paced rhythm of life, where busyness becomes a measure of success and value. We frequently hear phrases like, "The more you work, the more you prove your worth," or, "Not having time is a sign of success." These beliefs are deeply ingrained in our minds and create pressure in every action and decision we make. We accept stress, anxiety, and scarcity as part of the journey to success that society has drawn for us, without realizing that it is this very busyness that causes us to lose ourselves more and more. A retired businessman once shared, "My whole life was spent chasing numbers. Now, I am learning to eat slowly, each grain of rice touching my tongue, and only then do I realize how precious life is." This statement contains a deep awakening. A man who spent his life pursuing numbers, work targets, and material achievements has finally realized that happiness is not something that can be attained by accumulating one more number. True happiness lies in the simple moments, in each breath, in the slow moments when we savor the small things around us. Living slowly does not mean doing everything slowly or stopping our efforts. It means learning to live fully in the present, to appreciate the value of every moment, even in the smallest of tasks. As Thich Nhat Hanh wrote, "When washing dishes, wash dishes." This is the art of living slowly, doing one thing at a time, living fully with each task we are doing, whether it is something as simple as washing dishes, cooking, or even breathing. In a society filled with pressure, we often find ourselves stuck in an endless striving, forgetting that in this chase, we lose sight of the valuable things around us. Meditation helps us recognize this. Meditation is a process of returning to oneself, to observe and appreciate what is happening in each moment. Meditation is not something complicated or distant, it is simply a way of life, living slowly, living mindfully, living fully. In a day of living slowly, we can accomplish many things, but each task is done with full attention, without distraction or hurry. We can meditate, listen to the wind, hear the sound of rain falling, feel each step on the earth, smell the damp earth after the rain, or simply watch the yellow leaves fall. Every moment like this is an opportunity for us to return to ourselves, to become more aware of life, of ourselves, and of the world around us. This is what Thich Nhat Hanh calls meditation in everyday life. You might think that living slowly will cause you to miss out on opportunities, to fall behind in the social race. However, the reality is quite the opposite. When we slow down, we have time to observe and recognize real opportunities. We are not swept away by temporary desires or society's false contracts. We realize that happiness is not a destination but a journey. It is how we live in each moment of life, how we learn to love and care for ourselves. The story of the retired businessman is a testament to this. Throughout his life, he pursued achievements in his career, always striving to reach lofty goals, without realizing that true happiness came when he began to slow down, to savor each meal, each small action in life. From this, he understood that real wealth is not what we accumulate from the outside world, but the contentment within our own hearts. When we live too hurriedly, we easily lose sight of our true selves, the stillness and peace within. We rush into work, into fame, into material things that society deems important, but we fail to recognize that these are only temporary things and cannot bring true peace. We need to learn to look back, to pause, to see that the most precious things in life are not what we are chasing after, but what we already have. And what we already have is the presence, the awareness in each moment of life. Living slowly is not about avoiding responsibility or rejecting modern life. On the contrary, it is a way of learning to face life more fully and completely. When we live slowly, we not only live for ourselves but also for those around us, for the community. When we know how to savor each moment, we can share that joy and peace with others. True happiness does not lie in having wealth, fame, or power, but in the ability to live in the present, to appreciate what we have, and to love ourselves. As Thich Nhat Hanh once said, happiness is when you can enjoy every moment of life, no matter what it is. And that is the profound meaning of living slowly. It is living fully, living mindfully, living with gratitude for what we have. Try stopping and paying attention to the things that seem small in life, the sound of birds singing, the scent of flowers, the warmth of sunlight, or simply the quiet moments spent with loved ones. Happiness, in fact, is always present in these simple things, and it is only when we slow down that we truly recognize it. In our modern lives, filled with stress and pressure, we are often swept up in a whirlwind of anxiety about the future. Every step we take seems to be marked by plans, intentions, and unfulfilled desires. From relationships and work to health, everything seems to require preparation, forecasting, and control in order to achieve what we wish for in the future. Yet, while we race against time and fear what has not yet come to pass, we overlook the precious moments right before our eyes. When an 80-year-old man shared, "I used to fear death so much I couldn't sleep. Now, every morning I wake up and can still breathe, I smile, it's a blessing." His words not only reflect the experience of someone who has lived many years, but also a profound lesson in awakening and acceptance. He no longer lives in fear of the future or drowned in the anxiety of death. Instead, he finds joy in each day of life. The important lesson here is not in preparing for an uncertain future but in the ability to recognize the value of the present moment. The greatest blessing is simply being alive, breathing, and experiencing our existence in each fleeting moment, without the need to race against time or worry about what has not yet come. The Diamond Sutra, one of the most important texts in Buddhism, teaches us, do not seek the past, do not dream of the future. This teaching not only encourages us to let go of the past but also advises us not to worry excessively about the future. We live in a society where the future is often framed as the ultimate goal. From work and relationships to finances, everything is measured and planned for a better tomorrow. However, in our focus on what lies ahead, we often overlook the present, forgetting what is happening right now. We invest all our energy into an uncertain future while failing to realize that the only truth is what is occurring in the present moment. The future, in essence, is an illusion. We can only live in the present, we can only control what is happening right now. The future never truly arrives, it is simply a series of predictions, dreams, and assumptions we create for ourselves. If we live only to prepare for what has not yet occurred, we miss the precious moments that life offers us in the present. This is like carrying an umbrella to search for rain and effort to prepare for something that has not yet happened, while the present may provide us with everything we need. The image of a leaf floating on the river, neither clinging to the shore nor grasping at the rocks, in Buddhism is a wonderful metaphor for letting go, relaxing, and accepting. The leaf drifts along the surface of the water without trying to hold onto the shore, without attempting to control the river's flow. It simply follows the current, merging with the movement of the universe. The future is like the river, it will come in its own way, and we cannot control it. If we persist in holding on and trying to control, we only exhaust ourselves, create anxiety, and lose our peace of mind. We must learn to let go and allow things to unfold naturally. Instead of fearing what will come, we need to focus on what we have now, to recognize the miracle of the present moment, because only the present is the real reality we can experience. Each moment in life is a miracle. Whether it's a smile from a child, the sweetness of fruit, or the distant sound of temple bells, all are signs of peace and tranquility in life. When we stop to appreciate these small things, we realize that happiness is not something that lies in the future, but rather is the presence we find in each moment of the now. When we live in the present moment, without concern for the past or the future, we will feel complete and fulfilled in ourselves. But in today's society, living in the present seems like a luxury. With the hustle and bustle of life and the demands from work, family, and society, we easily fall into a state of anxiety and stress over what has not yet happened. We fear the future, worry about what is to come, and strive to control everything. But living in anxiety about the future only pulls us further away from the present. We cannot control everything, and the more we try, the more exhausted and powerless we feel. The only way to live in peace is to learn how to let go and accept everything as it is in the present. In Buddhism, letting go is an essential part of the path to liberation. Letting go does not mean abandoning responsibility or disregarding the future, but it means releasing excessive attachment to what is not part of the present. When we are no longer bound by the past or the anxiety of the future, we can live in true freedom and peace. We do not need to seek happiness in what has not yet come, for we can find it in what is happening right now. One of the practices that helps us live in the present is mindfulness. Mindfulness is the ability to focus and live fully in each moment without being distracted by thoughts of the past or the future. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to observe our feelings, thoughts, and emotions without judgment or attempting to change them. Mindfulness teaches us that every moment has value and is an opportunity to live fully. Imagine a day without anxiety about the future, without plans or expectations, simply existing in the present moment. Feel the peace in your breath, in eating, in walking. All can become acts of meditation if we truly live in them. Life is not a race, it is a journey. And this journey can only be fully experienced when we live in the present, without worrying about the future or holding on to the past. With this awakening, we will realize that happiness is not a destination, but a way of living. When we learn to live in each moment, when we do not let our minds wander to what is yet to come, we will find paradise right in our own lives. Looking back on the journey of life, we see that everything comes and goes like clouds in the sky. The things we once worried about, once clung to, will one day disappear. When we stop caring about what others think, when we learn to remain silent in the face of slander, when we dare to say no to things that do not suit us, when we know how to live simply and be content, that is when we are truly free. Some people spend their whole lives chasing the future, but the future is just an illusion. The Buddha taught, do not seek the past, do not dream of the future. Only the present is real. So why not live fully right now? Life does not demand that we be perfect, nor does it expect us to carry everything, nor must we always be strong. Life simply asks that we be awake enough to know, each day we can breathe is a gift, and every simple moment can be heaven if we know how to cherish it. Take a deep breath, let go of your worries, and smile. Because you don't need to become someone else. You just need to be yourself, in this impermanent world.